18 Primeira Liga campaigns have passed since Sporting Clube de Portugal, or Sporting CP, have sat atop the table come the final match day of the season. 19 years later, it would be difficult to imagine them not snapping that streak, considering the deficit between themselves and second place Braga. Hey, I'm Adrian, and welcome to Rabona TV, where today we're going to jinx we're going to cover Sporting. Come on, guys. We're just joking around. We're having fun. We're going to cover Sporting, what's happened in the 19 years since their last league title, their manager, Ruben Amorim, who has been the best thing to happen to them in a while, it seems like, Pedro Gonçalves, and more. If you're new to the channel, you dig the content, and you want to find your way back to us much more easily, then do be sure to hit that subscribe button, as we are closing in on 200K. But other than that, let's go back to 2002. Sporting was a different club back in the early 2000s. They won their first title in 18 years in the 1999-2000 season, beating out Porto by just 4 points. And while they struggled to score goals in the iconic 2000-2001 season that saw Boa Vista become just the 5th team in Portuguese football history to win a league title, they rectified that in a big way for the 2001-2002 season. Now, Mario Jardel is a legendary figure from the late 90s to early 2000s era of Portuguese football, making his name as a clinical finisher, a guy who could not stop scoring in Portugal. From his arrival in Portugal in 1996 via Porto, he helped them en route to their 5 consecutive titles, finishing as the league's top scorer in 3 of his 4 seasons, before leaving to Galatasaray in the year 2000. And so, with Sporting needing a reliable goal scorer, they called upon Mario Jardel for the 2001-2002 season, and he picked up from where he had left off with Porto. In his final season with Porto, he scored 38 goals. 2 years later, returning via Sporting, Jardel scored 42. 42 goals in a single league campaign. Just ludicrous stuff. The second highest scorer that season, LAKEY, with 21, quite literally half the amount that Jardel had scored. But it wasn't just Jardel that contributed to their success, as João Pinto was an instrumental player for them, playing off of Jardel as a sort of second striker. A young Ricardo Quaresma contributed to the goals, and it felt like they could kick on in the next season, but they didn't. Jardel couldn't reach the heights of the previous season for one reason or another, injuries included, and despite emerging talents in Cristiano Ronaldo and Ricardo Quaresma, Porto took the league crown back, thanks to their fledgling manager, a guy you might have heard of, José Mourinho. Sporting never really came back after that. We haven't seen them win since then, not for 18 full seasons now. They've finished runners-up on 6 occasions in that time frame and have sort of become a cup team. Bar a 7-year trophy drought that lasted from 2008 to 2015, Sporting have won the Taça de Portugal, or the Portuguese Cup, 4 times, and the Taça de Liga, or League Cup, 3 times. And if you're into Super Cups, personally I'm not, then Sporting have won that 3 times in the last 18 seasons also. They've had similar success to Arsenal. No league title since the early 2000s, but some decent results in the cup competitions. They've seen fans, quote-unquote fans, attack their players. They've seen a political divide amongst the fan base thanks to their former president, and some of their best assets get sold for far below their value. And now they're seeing Sporting at the top of the table with a healthy lead. Well, Sporting had some success thanks in part to Bruno Fernandes and his incredible goal-scoring contributions. Shout out Bas Dost as well at the time. The big question was, how would they do after losing the former to Manchester United? During the summer transfer window of 2020, they seemingly found an extremely competent replacement in Pedro Gonçalves from Famalicão. Haven't heard of him yet? Surely you will soon, as the inevitable links to clubs across Europe will become more and more frequent. This guy was actually the property of Wolves for a while before leaving to Famalicão. Gonçalves is certainly the leader of Sporting's attack this season, scoring 14 and assisting twice in 19 appearances. His goals make up 1/3 of the total Sporting have scored in the league. He typically plays either on the right flank of Sporting's 3-4-3/3-3-3-1 formation, or tucked behind the striker as a second striker or attacking midfielder, when their manager, who we will get to later, plays their most commonly used 3-4-2-1 formation. Or 3-4-3, depending how technical you want to look at it. While his goal-scoring form has cooled off a bit as of late, he had a ridiculous run from October to early December in which he scored in 6 consecutive matches, shooting from 0 goals to 10 goals, just like that in the league. He currently leads the league in goals scored, and by a decent margin. Those closest to him have only scored 9 to his 14. Another great addition has been that of Nuno Santos, who typically plays as a left winger or behind the striker alongside Gonçalves. He too has cooled somewhat when it comes to, his output numbers wise, but he's ever present as a top performer for this Sporting side. With Sporting's managerial change came a focus on giving their youth players a chance, something that hadn't bore as much fruit as in the past in recent years. The most notable product of their Alcochete Academy has been 18-year-old Nuno Mendes, who has featured down the left flank as a left wing back and excelled in that position, while Thiago Tomás, who turns 19 in June, has mostly featured as a center forward, but has played on the right as well, depending on the formation Sporting go with. They are raw talents, but are developing quite well. This is thanks in large part to Sporting's manager Ruben Amorim. Now, you may remember Amorim from his playing days, given he has just turned 36 years old. He retired at 32. He spent most of his career with Benfica, and upon retiring, he quickly transitioned into coaching. After a brief stint with Casa Pia in the second division and SC Braga's B team, upon the sacking of Braga's manager Ricardo Sapinto in December of 2019, Amorim took the reins of the senior side, but not for long. He officially took over at Braga on December 23rd, 2019, and from then until March 4th, 2020, he oversaw 13 matches, winning 10, drawing 1, and losing 2. Those 2 losses coming in the Europa League, but his domestic form was impeccable for Braga. They didn't lose a single league match while he was in charge. He navigated Braga through the semi-finals of the League Cup as well, beating Sporting 2-1, and then defeating Porto 1-0 in the final, their first League Cup win since the 2012-13 season. Not bad for your first month in top-flight management. From there, Sporting were so convinced of his ability as a manager, with his vision as a manager, that they paid 10 million euros to bring him back to Lisbon, but on the green side of the city this time. Imagine that. He's a guy who had been managing in the Portuguese top flight for less than 3 full months at that time. Granted, winning a cup in that time frame, but still, to pay 10 million euros to sign him from Braga, the 3rd highest amount that a football club worldwide had paid for the transfer of a manager. I mean, talk about putting some pressure on a fledgling manager. So how has it gone? Ruben Amorim closed out the 2019-20 season quite well with Sporting, losing just twice in the final 11 league matches that he oversaw. A 2-0 loss to Porto and 2-1 away to Benfica. Nothing to sneeze at, really, as they ended up finishing in 4th behind Braga. The first stain on his resume will have been the failure to qualify for the Europa League. After beating Aberdeen in the 3rd round of qualifying, Sporting fell 4-1 away to Austrian Bundesliga runners-up LASK Linz. The second stain on his resume, dropping out of the Taça de Portugal in the round of 16 against Primeira Liga relegation candidates Marítimo. But with those 2 things out of the way, Ruben Amorim has been remarkable at Sporting. As mentioned in the previous segment, he has incorporated Sporting's talented youngsters into the squad brilliantly. He's taken Nuno Santos and Pedro Gonçalves, 2 signings from Rio Ave and Famalicão respectively, and gotten the most out of them. On top of that, he's taken what used to be an extremely leaky Sporting backline and turned it into the best defense in Portugal, with just 10 goals conceded from 21 matches played. In fact, as things stand, you won't find a better defense in the top 5 leagues. Finally, Sebastian Coates has a worthy partner in Zuhair Fidal, who was brought in from Real Betis, with the 3rd spot in Sporting's back 3 either being filled by Gonçalo Inácio, another youth product that Ruben Amorim has brought through, or Luís Neto. The attackers we mentioned earlier, coupled with the airtight defense, amounted to Sporting not losing a single match in the league thus far, with 17 wins and 4 draws. The only team to not suffer a loss yet in Europe's top leagues, as they currently are enjoying a 9-point lead over Braga. On top of that, Amorim endeared himself to the fans further as he won the League Cup with Sporting back in January of 2021, defeating Porto in the semis, and his former club Braga 1-0 in the final. The man held on to his belt, but with a different club, of course. For these reasons, you can see why Sporting fans are daring to dream about snapping their 19-year drought without a league title. Perhaps very, very cautiously dreaming about it, as we have seen Sporting sides look promising in the past, only to falter toward the end of the season, to crack under the pressure. So we'll see what happens, but regardless of the outcome, they look a far more stable club than they were before. Far more stable than I've been able to remember, with a clear vision of how to go forward thanks to their young, talented manager. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, be sure to drop a like to help me out, algorithmically speaking. And if you disliked it, then go ahead and dislike it as well. You're free to do as you choose. My name is Adrian. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. I hope you learned something new, and take care of yourself. Ciao!